Tonight you have about 58 people. Elaine, Dr. Simple, if you'd like to start.
Hey, hi. Welcome to the Special Education Instructional I don't know, Special Ed meeting, Q&A. Thank you for coming. I want to explain in advance that this is for special education students only. General questions, you can go to the TUSD website and there's a link for the 2021 school year reopening, or you can contact your school site admin. So we're really focused on special education today. This is a repeat of the July 20th Q&A that we did. Unfortunately, the notification for that Q&A only went out to a couple hundred parents. So while that's not okay, I'm going to give you a little explanation because it's kind of a good thing. And that I know is hard to see, but we typically don't send out from the district office communications to special education parents due to privacy. We usually send all the communications communications come directly from the students' teachers, just so that there's not a possibility of someone being publicly identified as a special education student, just to protect our kiddos. And so this was our first foray into sending out the notification from PowerSchool because the teachers are on summer break, and there are a lot of filters. So not all the filters got removed. So on the first go around, only a couple hundred people were notified. We found out after the meeting that happened, and so we removed some more filters, sent out a recording of the Q&A and the slides, and found out that still didn't get to everybody. So if you never got it, you're really protected. No one knows that you're identified as a special education student. You should have gotten it now, and we think we've got a pretty good system in place. I want to say we absolutely do, but I'm not technologically whatever. So the words sound really, really good, and I trust our IT people. So I think we're ready to go on that. I'm going to do introductions. So I'm Elaine Semple. I'm the Director of Special Ed for Torrance. We also have Tammy Kahn. You want to say, like, I was just going to say who you are. Okay. Teresa.
I'm Teresa Lanphier, Principal of Launch Preschool.
Jessica.
Jessica Gabriel, Program Specialist for Elementary Schools.
Michelle.
Michelle Amonton, Program Specialist for Elementary Schools.
Ian.
Ian McCullough, Program Specialist for Middle Schools.
Alicia.
Alicia Lugo Gutierrez, Program Specialist.
And of course, we've got our most honored guests. We've got Dr. Crumpy, who's the Chief Academic Officer. I feel like Dr. Crumpy, Betty, Lou, and Terry Reagans I should introduce because they're very important people. So Terry and Betty are school board members. Terry's the president, and I think everybody knows who Dr. Crumpy is, our Chief Academic Officer. So with that being said, I'm going to explain a little bit how the Q&A portion of this is going to go. So agenda-wise, I'm going to go through these slides, and then after we finish going through the slides, we have asked people to submit questions in advance. So, and we got quite a few. So we are going to, you can raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question live. You can put your questions in the chat, and we will rotate through. So Tammy will call on a parent and that has their hand raised so they can ask the question, and then we will go through the program specialists, and they will take questions either from the chat or questions that were submitted in advance, just so that whichever forum, there's equal representation, and also just to make sure that we touch on, if it's a question, you know, we get some related services, we get some questions about SDC, we get high school, we get elementary, that, you know, all areas are equally represented. And this session is being recorded and will be available for viewing later. So I just wanted you to know that if you know your voice is on there, if you do speak up, you are being recorded. Okay. All right, Tammy, you want to, this is the first slide?
Yes.
Special education information session. Let's go on to the next one. So the basics. You know that there was a deadline and students needed to elect either distance learning or blended learning. If you didn't select anything, then you were the default was you were placed into blended learning. Of course, everyone is going to start out in the distance learning format until we get the okay to return to in-person services. So that's what this slide basically said. All TUST students will begin in a virtual format initially, and then your selection won't change once we can safely begin to return to school in stages. Principals will be notifying parents whether the student is in an AM or PM or an A or B schedule by August 10th for students that are primarily served in the general education setting. Next one. So blended learning. So students with IEPs are going to participate in one of the following blended learning models based upon their current setting, what their offer of FAPE is on their IEP right now. So students TK in grade 5 who are primarily served in general education with Learning Center and SAI support are going to be in the elementary AM-PM blended model. The related services are going to be provided via distance format to the greatest extent possible to maximize contact with general education instruction. So to the extent possible, we're not going to be pulling kids out for their related services. When we can, we'll be pushing in for related services and then providing related services in a distance learning format. We are looking into the possibility of there being opportunities for perhaps some students to participate in more with more contact, but we're not sure exactly if that's going to be permissible or not. Next slide. For the middle school, high school students who are, grades 6 through 12 who are primarily served in general education. So these are kids with resource learning center. These would be students who are in SAI classes or study skills classes, and also our students in adults transition. You'll be on the AB model. So attending school in either Monday, Thursday, or Tuesday, Friday, and then all students in the blended model will be asynchronous on Wednesday, regardless of your grade level or your placement type. Again, related services are going to be provided via distance format during asynchronous time to the greatest extent possible, so that when kids are have the opportunity to interact in person with their general education or special education teachers if they're in SAI classes, then they're not pulled out from those classes. Next slide. For our kiddos who receive most of their instruction in a self-contained multi-grade or special day class, including preschool, their blended model will be 4 days a week in person, and then they'll be instructed asynchronously on the day that all the other students receive the instruction offsite. So right now that's Wednesdays. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, the students will be in person, and then Wednesday they'll be asynchronous. Their related services will be provided on campus while the students are there. For some of those students who can participate successfully in asynchronous learning, maybe with just para-educator support, some of our GIS providers may be providing that. That will be up to the individual service providers and the teacher to make sure that what we're trying to do is not mix students and trying to keep kids in the same room as much as we possibly can, so less places for them to go and touch surfaces that other kids have touched, less exposure to other groups of kids. So there might be a circumstance where a related service provider might have a child or two or kids that are in the same cohort working with where she's up on the screen and the paraeducator is there providing the support and helping the kids do that. It for things like OT, PT, APE, that might work better. Next slide. Distance only. So our students with IEPs who elected to remain at home will receive daily contact 4 days a week. They're going to get their DIS minutes and a full program. Their hours of instruction, the requirements for students with IEPs is the same for all students, and their related services will be provided in a distance format to mirror their IEP to the greatest extent possible. We recognize that students that have elected distance only might have some challenges with the way the services are being provided, and so there may be some circumstances where we will have amendments to discuss that, and it'll be documented in the notes. We'll be keeping our goal is always for all of this for everybody to come back and we resume normal operations, and our offer of FAPE is based on that, but we definitely will be having conversations with parents about how we might best provide instruction and how we might have to do some accommodations or modifications to the way we're providing services, and we can do that via an amendment if it's necessary. Next slide. So the way the screen's working on me right now, the Brady Bunch view is cutting off like a half of my slide, so I'm a little thrown. So, but for students in SDC blended programs, the SDC teachers at individual sites, they're going to work with their site administrators and with the program specialists so that we look at the number of students that are electing to return full-time, and then we're going to decide how we're going to serve those students. So if their classes are super small and we can accommodate all the children in the classroom at one time and safely distance, then we will do that. But in some situations where a lot of the kids are coming back, we may have to break the class up into cohorts, and then the teams, the school site, and will work on a schedule to determine if the students, if the teachers will be with one group of students providing the academic instruction in one part of the day, and then the DIS providers and social skills instruction, those opportunities will be happening with the other group, and then they'll flip. We may have to do that for some of our kids and have them in separate environments just to ensure that we have enough space to keep them safe. Students in all of the blended class programs will have the same asynchronous district-wide day and the minutes of instruction as gen ed students, and both blended and distance learning students will be offered all the services on their IEPs. Goals and objectives will continue to be worked on. Data will be collected and progress will be reported on. Some of the goals and objectives we may have to discuss in amendment if students are in a distance program and the goal requires some level of social interaction that we can't achieve in that format. We would want to meet and talk about how we're going to best achieve the goal, achieve the purpose of the goal in another way. Next slide. IEPs will continue to be held via distance format. Annuals and triennial IEPs will continue. If a family doesn't have access to the appropriate technology at home, then if necessary, the school will provide a safe setting at the site for the parent to attend the meeting, adhering to the masks and safety guidelines. The team members, though, may still be attending via virtual platform. I think enough parents are here and have been to enough IEPs to know that the rooms where IEPs are held are not large, and the number of people typically at an IEP is large, and so the likelihood that we'd be able to maintain anything resembling 6 feet is unlikely. So we'll continue to have IEPs in a distance format. Next slide. So this is something that wasn't on the last one. We just kind of wanted to share. We didn't survey the entire population. Actually, those couple of hundred people that got the first notification that made it through the filter on the first notification participated in this. And so this is just kind of what we found out from our parents, special education parents, that it looks to us like about 40% of our kiddos are going to go distance, and about 60% of our students will attend in person. But again, this is only from a couple hundred people, so it might not be representative. But I wanted to share in the event that you were one of the people that filled out the survey, you could see what the results were. Next slide. And this was also from that survey. We're trying to find out if there is a way, and there are things that we don't know, and we're still researching what exactly all the guidelines from the Department of Public Health, and when we go through and we complete the requirements for reopening and serving kids in person, what can we do, and just because we can doesn't mean we should. So what can we do, and then what should we do? We wanted to just find out if we could and we should provide any related services on campus during the asynchronous time. Would parents be able to bring the kiddos to school? And so far this is kind of what it's looking like. But okay, so with that, we will start our Q&A.
Okay, give me 1 second.
All right, why don't we take a parent first?
Yeah. Okay, so when I call on you, that means you are able to speak. So the first person up is Kimberly Elliott.
Hi.
Go ahead, Kimberly.
Hi. I'm just curious how we're going to get the supportive services. My daughter will be transitioning into middle school for the first time, so I'm just curious how that would look. Is that going to be part of the in-person? Because when we had the last transition meeting virtually, our IEP transition meeting, they talked about her having a separate time to meet with that person. Would that be how it would be in middle school?
So when you say a separate time to meet with that person, you mean in advance of school starting, she was going to have an opportunity to meet with them, or just as a part of her day, she was going to have?
Yes, Elaine, as a part of her day, like instead of going to a wood shop or her elective, she would go there. So can you just kind of let me know how that would look in the blended model?
Okay, so this is, I just have to double check, because we have 2 ways we do that. One of them is we actually have a regularly scheduled time, so that in lieu of an elective, the student goes to a period with the special education teacher. We call, for some schools it's called study skills. Different schools have different names, but it's a period during the day when we have a small number of students that are in a classroom with a special education teacher, working on goals and objectives, helping them work with, all kinds of things. But then there's another way that we do it, and that's during the week, the student once to 5 times a week might miss, and they kind of rotate through, might not go to the elective this day, might not go to PE this day, might not go to something else, never a core subject, but another day or for a portion of it, and we'll meet with the special education teacher. Which one of those are you talking about?
The latter.
Okay, and so students in distance and students in regardless, if it's on their IEP, they're going to get it. So if she has an individual consult on her IEP with a special education teacher, she's still going to be assigned she'll be assigned her general education teacher and rotating through, but she will still have that special education person. The difference is she will likely be doing that during asynchronous time. So that she won't be being pulled out during one of those classes. Rather, the special education teacher will work during asynchronous time, as long as that works for her. So it's just like any other IEP. It's an individualized education plan. So if it's not working, and I think that's one of the things I really want to communicate to our special education folks. In advance of this, I got a lot of emails, and there were people that were saying, we had a challenge with this, we had a challenge with that. And I've been contacting the school sites, and they're like, oh, we didn't know. And so I think really quickly, when something's not working and you're having a challenge, really contact your case carrier, contact your special education teacher, the special education person that's assigned to manage your child's IEP. Contact them and let them know, let the school site know. If you feel like you're still facing hurdles, then contact your program specialist and your coordinator. One of the things I learned in this is that once the program specialists have been contacted a couple times, they've worked through solutions. So something that might have happened at Casimir, then they can take what they learned working through that situation at that one site and apply it to another site. So they're really good resources because they're dealing with lots of families at lots of sites, and they learned a lot in this process. So the program specialists are phenomenal resources for you going into the fall. They learned a lot, and they are constantly educating themselves. I just talked to Ian yesterday, and he was like, well, I was just reading up on something. I was like, they want to make this work for you.
Thank you, Elaine. It's good to know that it's not written in stone that it would only be asynchronous if that didn't help her.
No.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Ian, you want to give us a question from either the chat or
We've tackled the questions from the chat, so if we want to go to some of the parent submitted questions, we can do that.
Yeah, we only have one more hand up, so if you want to.
Okay.
So Carol Sua, you're next.
Hi, Carol.
You guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, thanks for having the session. I just want to clarify because I thought I saw on the slide if you chose, my daughter's in the high school special education classes, and I thought I saw one of the slides if you chose blended, it would be 4 days a week going to school. Is that correct? Or
What high school is your daughter at?
South High School.
At South High School. So if we have some classes that parents refer to as special education classes or special day classes that really are specialized academic instruction. So the students that are going to be coming 4 days a week are in our multi-grade special day classes at South High. So it's not students that are then they're in an alternative curriculum. So if your student is in one of those classes, they will be coming 4 days a week. So STEPS kinds of programs. Did I answer it?
Okay, so yeah, I think she's in the STEPS program. So then she would be going to school 4 times a week then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because I was under the impression if we chose blended, that she would go 2 times a week and then have asynchronous learning the other 2 times a week. So is that not correct then?
That's not correct for our kids. So part of the reason that the blended program isn't 4 days a week for everybody is because of space. In order to adhere to the Department of Public Health guidelines, we have to have some fewer kids in the classroom. Our special day self-contained multi-grade classes already have fewer kids in the class. So that space limitation isn't an issue. Additionally, there's some permissibility for students who are significantly impacted. And so our special day kiddos are more impacted. So the opportunity to instruct them more, we took that opportunity. Are
Okay.
you worried that you would prefer her to come the other two? Well, you know, individually, we'll talk to you after if you have concerns with that schedule and answer any Rudy's on here, your program specialist. So Rudy,
Yeah, yes, I might want to have, because I was a little leery even choosing the blended, but I thought, okay, if it's 2 days a week, then that might be okay. So now that I understand it's 4 days a week, I'm a little nervous about that. So I would like to have more discussion maybe about just my particular situation.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
A few more raised hands. Should I just go to those folks then?
Okay. I want to make sure we get to the questions on the other ones. And I saw that Sue asked about the paraeducator, so I might just jump in on because we've had a lot of paraeducator questions.
Okay.
So paraeducators are still going to be working. If your child had additional adult support on their IEP, that additional adult support in the blended program, that to the extent possible, we will keep the same people with the students that are already familiar with them. I can't guarantee it. People, and any more than I could, anytime people put in transfers, they're going to be people that have pre-existing conditions or reasons for not being able to return to work. Additionally, we're going to be looking at which paraeducators are going to be supporting students in distance learning and which paraeducators are going to be supporting kids in the classroom. So that's going to be important. But now is not the time. I mean, so much is different as it is. So to the extent possible, we would like to be able to keep kids with adults that are familiar with them. I think, especially if they have a different distance learning teacher, than having the paraeducator that's familiar with them is going to help. If they have individual adult support on their IEP and they require it to access the distance learning program, and they can access it via distance, they can access that paraeducator support with the distance in a breakout room, or then they will continue to have that additional adult support. In terms of sending people into the homes, and we've had a lot of specific questions regarding paraeducators and non-public support in the home. And at this time, we're not providing any in-person instruction or support to any students, right? They're not coming to school. We're not going into the homes. Once the county has met the requirements and we begin our phased-in instruction in blended and distance learning model at the school site, we're considering all options with regard to maximizing the resources we have, including people and spaces, to provide additional learning opportunities and support for our most impaired students. But it's not part of the current plan, but we are researching it. Okay. Do we have raised hands still, Tammy?
We do. Next is Monica Gonzalez.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? I have a few questions. I opted for blended learning for Torrance High School, and I was also under the impression it'd be 2 days a week. So you're saying it's going to be 4 days once the school is safe to reopen?
No, it's 2 days. There's only one. Only if your child is in a self-contained multi-grade special day class will it be 4 days a week.
Oh, I see.
So
Okay.
there is one class like that at Torrance High School. But other than that, no. If your child is in, if they're in special education classes, we call those specialized academic instruction, where the classroom, they just are in a smaller group and they're supported by a special education teacher that works on the general education curriculum then no, those students are going to be following the AB model.
Okay, so I have two sons in special skills class, today's skills class. So they go to school.
Study skills kiddos, the kids that are in the study skills classes are on the AB model. and they'll still participate in their study skills class. That'll just be a part of their schedule.
Okay, also, how do I follow up on an IEP? I have one for my older son. I think it was in the works and the pandemic hit.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of questions about that. We have still not been permitted quite to do assessments in person. And
Okay.
so it's been on, a lot of the initial assessments have been on hold, and we did our best to have triennial IEPs and, via reviewing whatever data we could. But we will be, making up a lot of initial assessments and a lot of triennial assessments once we are allowed to work with kids in person.
Okay, because right now he's on that 501 plan, or I'm sorry, I don't know what it's called.
504?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yes.
No, that's cool. Yeah, 504.
Okay. Also, one last question. Will lunch still be provided as a grab-and-go option through Hall Middle School?
That's not a special ed question, so I'm going to if Katie, are you available?
Oh, sorry. Okay, never mind. That's it. Thank you.
No, it's okay. She can do it.
I'm gonna try. I'm not over nutritional services, but I've been listening to a lot of these meetings, and so once we resume in the fall, so there will be available food on campus, but we don't know yet whether the waivers right now are that it can go to anybody. And what might happen when school starts is that the grab and go will be available to our free and reduced lunch students.
Yeah, that's what we're on.
Yeah, and so it will still be available there. We're kind of looking at whether or not it will be, because our hope is that that we have it at more sites and that it's there. But they're still kind of we're working on the federal versus state guidance, and all of these things have been really actually wonderful that we're getting assistance from our local government and federal government that they've given us these waivers so that we can do this. But you'll get that information if we can't do it to where your kids go to school, because they may be changing those locations or altering them just a bit. So we will make sure we publicize it very well. But yes, when our schools are closed, free and reduced lunch kids for sure will still be receiving all of their food.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you answering my question.
Sure.
Okay, so Ian, go ahead and let's do a couple of the questions that people have submitted.
Well, I think one of the important questions that I got for the middle school, high school sector was just in regards to assessment. So maybe you can touch upon assessments.
Okay, so there is a SELPA assessment committee we are working on right now, trying to figure out as things continue on shutdown, we're looking into, are there tools that we can use for doing remote assessments? Are there ways that we can evaluate kids in a distance format? We're gathering as much information as we can. Even when we are allowed to return in person, we will be doing as much of our assessment as we can distance. So interviews with parents won't be in person. They'll be over the phone or via distance format. Rating scales will be sent home or sent to teachers, and we'll be using as many tools as we can that are non-contact. And then when we are working with students, appropriate PPE, we're setting up the school psychologists and speech pathologists with plexiglass and face shields, and putting plastic overlays over test materials if a child is required to touch the screens. But there is a SELPA committee where we're looking at the different tools to see if there are any that are valid for remote assessment, and working with the National Association of School Psychologists and ASHA, the Speech and Language Association, to figure out a way to safely assess kids in a COVID world. And we will be making up the assessments that didn't occur, that still need to occur, as soon as we can. Okay. Oh, so that was Ian. So Jessica?
Let's see if I have a question that wasn't answered for SDCs. What curriculum will the distance-only SDC students use? And then I believe we answered the second question, will there be a different SDC teacher online versus hybrid?
Okay, so
you want
we
me to
kind of
answer
talked
that?
about this before.
Okay.
So you could give the examples, but the curriculum for both the distance and the blended, we're not changing the curriculum itself. We're just changing the way that we are delivering it, and perhaps with some supplementary. So our kiddos in the multi-grade self-contained SDCs, we do tie their learning to the Common Core standards, and we instruct in Common Core, and we do use guided reading. They do have the additional curriculum from the unique, the N2Y. Jessica, the other things.
Yeah, some of the online platforms teachers have been utilizing are Seesaw, Boom Learning. We're going to continue to use, like Elaine said, guided reading, ST Math, handwriting without tears. Those are just some examples. But.
And then will my student have the same teacher if they're blended and distance? And no. Teachers will be assigned to either a class of students and they will be instructing them in a blended, or they will be assigned a class of students and they'll be distance. We for quality of instruction, for teachers to be trying to plan two completely different lessons in a completely different format, that's asking a lot. So
Elaine, there was a question that came in at 1:55 p.m. What is the view of children that flat out refuse to engage in demands or directives delivered via remote instruction and session? And that also reflects a question that we received previously in relation to a student not being able to sit through an entire Zoom session in class, and behaviors are resulting.
Yeah.
So I'd like to answer that if.
Yeah.
Okay. So maintaining an open line of communication with and sharing concerns regarding your child's unique challenges with the special education case manager, teacher, or related service providers, if applicable, may allow for proactive support to be put in place. For example, one was adjusting a volume of the device because the student doesn't like to hear his peers' voices over his device. Maybe providing captioning and learning how to allow that on your device, and developing a positive reinforcement strategy that may allow for incremental increases over time in taking in the distance learning. Anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, and that's, so a couple things. One of them is definitely work with your case carrier or program specialist, because we are dealing with this with a lot of different families, so we might have some strategies. But we're also going to have, the district is offering some parent trainings, I think the week of August 10th, and one of them will be on engaging special education students with distance learning. And then teachers are being provided with additional training in engagement and how to keep the kids engaged online, and also just strategies for working with the families and things that they can do. We've learned a lot in this process, just, about, we now know that the kids can't be doing it, that it doesn't seem like it would make a difference, but the kids have to be gotten up. They have to be not in their jammies. And we found that a lot of our students benefit from going outside and walking as if they were going to school, having a different environment than their bedroom for instruction, so that it seems like more of a classroom. We've learned a lot about just structuring the environment at home to support learning helps with refusal. Thanks, Alicia. Okay, so we got Ian, we got Jessica, we got Alicia, Rudy, you're muted, Rudy.
Okay, question I have here is if we find that forced distance learning is successful this time around, we will have an opportunity to stay distance. We would have selected distance if it worked for our child.
So I don't know if the question is that someone made a selection based on their experience in the the spring, and so the only thing is I know that this question comes up a lot, so we'll mention it again, is if you elected distance when we return, when we get the green light from DPH and LACO, you will remain on distance. If you elected blended, at that time you'll come back blended. If you decide that you want to change your mind, you can request it, but there's a possibility, a strong possibility, that we may not be able to accommodate the change. It will really depend on the schedules and space, and so I think that might answer it, Rudy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Michelle?
Michelle?
Yes. Distance learning for speech. Will speech be live or distance learning? And then there also is a question regarding if the student is full distant learning, will they be able to come on campus to get OT and PT, get their designated related services? So
right now, the related services, the DIS services, if you're a distance learning student, actually, even if you're a blended student, unless you're in a self-contained special day class, those services are going to be offered on a distance learning platform. Although we are researching the possibility of being able to offer some services, maybe that if it could be safely done outside in an area that's not shared with other students, and the student can wear PPE to do it. So that is something that we're researching. You know, perhaps an APE, adaptive PE class could, if the game that they played could be played in very separate areas with a 6 feet distance or more. They're playing, so we probably even want to do more if the students will tolerate wearing masks and we don't blend groups. We may be able to offer that. So, okay, Tammy, do we have a hand?
Yeah, Christy, go ahead.
Hi. 2 kids elementary distance learning is what we've opted for because parents have underlying health conditions, so we're maintaining our quarantine. Knowing that we may not have a homeschool-based teacher for gen ed because of the distance learning counts, will we still have the same special ed case carrier that is working with whatever gen ed teacher we get to implement IEP goals and differentiation?
I don't know. The case carriers, the special education case carriers, we're going to have to look at their caseloads as well, and if they're supporting kids blended or if they're supporting kids distance. So they will also be either blended or distance. So if your case carrier ends up being a distance teacher, then it would make sense to give that teacher the students that were previously on our caseload for sure, or his caseload. If you're in the distance and that teacher is providing services to students on campus, then not. But we are going to make a lot of effort to keep the related service providers to the extent possible with their kids. So
okay.
It's scheduling and putting pieces together. It's being really interesting, and because we want none of this is ideal for kids. It's just.
No, I understand that, and
we feel you guys. It's really a hard thought that your kiddo's going to be at home because of health reasons, and then and working with people that are trying to get up to speed to know your student like that. It's hard.
Yeah. My other thing is we have a triennial coming up. Possibility for postponing the assessments for a year and just doing the regular IEP.
So we'll still have the IEP, we'll still have the try, and to the extent possible, we'll update as much as we can to get as current. But the formal assessment will likely, if in-person assessment is required and we can't do it, we will that part will have to be done at a later date if it needs to be done. If we're also looking into the possibility with some of our kids with triennials where we've had multiple sets of standardized assessment and the results have been pretty consistent. Are there tests that maybe we can not have to give again because they have an auditory processing disorder. We know they have an auditory processing disorder. All the people that work with that student say this continues to be problematic for that student. So is there some permissibility in this environment for us to say that we are accepting that that's continuing and not giving the formal tests for that?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do another from the chat?
Yeah, we'll do another from the chat.
Okay. Nick and Rosie. Oops, sorry.
And we've got 9 minutes, guys.
No. Okay, there's an issue with their Zoom. I'm going to go to Jewel Tyndall until I can figure out what's going on with Nick and Rosie. Allow to talk as available. It looks like Nick and Rosie and Jewel, you guys are using an older version of Zoom. So it's not allowing me to allow you to talk just yet. Okay, Janet, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Janet. I have a daughter who is going into 4th grade. We had some challenges with distance learning in the spring where we had a hard time knowing when she was supposed to log on to meet with her instructor. And so I wanted to know for those of us who have to do distance learning for health reasons, what tools are going to be put into place so that we know for sure that, our kids have to log into a session. There were also times where she was logged in and nobody logged in because the calendars weren't synchronized or up to date. So I wanted to see if those challenges have been addressed. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would hope so. I think so. I know Ian there's a lot of practice with the platforms, and you guys have worked with the teachers. And I know the teachers are getting additional training in using the platforms the week of the 17th and then right before school starts. But
so I would answer the question. Yes, we are definitely working on a better system for the communication between the links of maybe your services or with your the times that they would be synchronously online. So we do have a better system. I think when it all just hit, I think we were all just trying to figure out what would be the best way to provide this and give our teachers directions. And since we've been able to kind of focus and concentrate on what would be the best way, we do have a better solution for our teachers to have a better communication with the parents and all the service providers, as well as the teachers that you're going to be working with. So,
and always contact your site admin when you're having those kinds of challenges. And if it's a special education related issue and the site admin can't help you, they'll drag these amazing program specialists in to support you.
Yeah, I wasn't sure who my site admin was, and I think, and I completely understand when all of this hit, it was just kind of, we got to hit the ground running. And I really appreciate how quickly, you know, adjustments were made. I think that the difficulty was that it wasn't necessarily with the tools. Maybe it was more the communication piece. So if that is more structured, then that's great. That's going to be, it's going to be a lot more structured this time around.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
I think so. Yeah. Okay, do we want to take questions?
I'm gonna let. Can I let the one people that I was supposed to call in so that they have their chance? I'm gonna have to let them in as it looks like as a panelist. So if your video is on, Nick and Rosie Kesseloff, your video is going to show. Let's see if that works. Are you guys there? Okay. I'm not sure. It's prompting me that there is an older version of Zoom being used. So I don't see them on the screen.
Teresa, have you gotten any launch specific questions?
I did. It related to the amount of instruction for students doing distance learning at launch. Students do have a 3-hour school day, but they will not, we're working out the schedule for the amount of live versus asynchronous for our preschoolers. They can't sit straight on a computer for 3 hours a day, but part of that 3-hour day is their DIS services as well. So I did indicate to the parent that I would respond to them more directly, but they will have more than the 30 minutes of direct instruction they had in the spring. We're going to be maximizing the IEP to the greatest extent possible, and so, and there will be a set time that students will be logging in to their teacher. It'll be very clear to the parents when that is, so they won't have to wonder what's happening on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday. And there will also be asynchronous activities on Wednesdays as well.
Program specialists, do you have questions that you feel like need to, Jessica?
Yeah, there was a question. Is nursing support being treated the same as paraeducator support?
So if a student has nursing support on their IEP and they're in a blended program and they require either a nurse on site or a nurse in the classroom, then whatever it is on their IEP and is on their health plan will be provided on site or in the classroom. In terms of nursing support for students who opt for a fully distance program, that will kind of have to be a discussion because nurses won't be going into the home to perform catheterizations or, you know, doing blood sugar checks. So the need for, you know, for what the nurse would be doing at that time. Nurses don't provide academic support. Healthcare paras do. So if the student has healthcare para support on their IEP and they require the academic portion of that or the behavioral portion of that to be provided in a distance learning format, that you know, that would definitely be something that would be discussed, and we figure out how we provide that. But we wouldn't, yeah. Melinda, I don't know, any other thought on that? No. Okay. Does anybody else have a question that they feel like we have, you know, that we haven't answered?
We may have already answered this, but knowing now that we will start the school year with distance learning, how does the district plan to provide individualized distance learning plans for each student with an IEP? How will parents participate in this planning process? And does the district intend to modify or review goals that may be inappropriate in the distance learning setting? So parents are part of the individualized education program team. The district offers free and appropriate public education in the same way offered pre-COVID. However, the team may acknowledge together what distance learning is for the student and make adjustments when possible. Would anyone like to add to that?
I think we won't be, if the student's in a blended program and they're able to access and things are going great, if the student is in a fully distance program and it's not working, it will need to be addressed through the IEP process. And definitely as students' IEPs occur, we'll be noting the plan that we have for those students for, the distance format. And if we need to have amendments, we absolutely will. I expect that from our kids that are having the hardest time or that are struggling, we'll be having amendments for a lot of our students to talk about how are we going to be supporting them and what can we do on some of these goals that we're not being able to address exactly in the way that we had before. We're pretty specific in the way we write our goals, which is a good thing because it makes them observable and measurable. But then to take them into a different environment, I could see where it's problematic. And so I do think that there will be a lot of meetings and and we're expecting that. So. Okay, I think our time is up, Tammy.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank. I didn't do this last time. This is my second. I think once I do like 4 of these, I'm going to be way more. I'm going to be like relaxed. I'll be just coming in like, hey guys, So better this time. So last time I just was so ready to be finished that I didn't thank everyone. Thank you parents for participating, but thank you board members for attending. Thank you Katie for taking time out of and including us in one of your millions daily Zooms. And thank you to Tammy for setting this up. But you guys, everybody, thank these program specialists, the ones that are here today and the ones that were on last time. They have not had a minute off, I don't think, since January. They are amazing. So put on your little clapping icon for them because they really are doing a fantastic job. All right. Thank you. Bye.